followers. Welcome to the next episode of our Tax Stories podcast, where today I'm speaking to very prominent tax experts from Russia. I met them both at some of the IFA congresses, and we will speak about IFA later on. My impression is that both are extremely intelligent, kind, nice to talk to guys, and I like the ones I read in Russian classic literature, and such people will make Russia great again one day. And I shortly introduce my first guest, Viktor Machekhin, who is a tax partner at Linklaters Russia already for 23 years. And he's a general secretary at IFA, organization uniting tax consultants from all over the world, IFA Russian branch. So he's in charge of educational activities and also very consistent already for 16 years. And also Viktor is assistant professor teaching at two universities. One is Finance University of Russia, and the second is Moscow State Legal Academy. And briefly about my second guest, which is Roustam Vakhitov. Roustam is international tax partner at Crow, part of the international audit network Crow Howard. He's based in Netherlands for many years now, so he's well aware of both parts of the world of Netherlands and Russia. He has studied his LLM in Leiden University, which is, I think, the best you can get in taxation currently in the world, at least in my opinion. Roustam, your Twitter account says that you are a financial transactions specialist, that you are the offshoreization specialist and Benelux countries specialist. So I was interested to learn that you are well aware of the Islamic finance as well. So that's actually what Viktor wrote about you in his LinkedIn profile. So and Viktor also said that you are elite of Russian international tax law. Have I missed anything, guys?
Thank you for this very kind introduction. I'm very flattered and honored to be introduced in such a prominent way. Couple of details. I'm partner of Crow Expertise because there are several Crow, and Horvath is being removed from the brand because number of reasons. So that's just Crow network. Other than this, well, thank you. I'm very, very pleased and to hear such a warm words about myself.
Thank you, Roustam. Thank you for the update about what's going on with Crow. Viktor,
well, I
was
think
that fair?
Summary? Well, fair enough. I would add just one thing, that I also spent 5 years when I was young working for the revenue. So it is the complete picture. So I worked from different sides, business, state, academy, professional networking. Yeah, everything's correct.
Okay, very good. Which parts of Russia are you originally from?
I'm from Moscow. It's very simple.
Uh-huh. And Roustam?
In my case, it's slightly more complicated. I was born in Western Siberia, city Surgut, which might be referred to as a capital of Russian oil industry. And I studied in several cities, including Novosibirsk, Yekaterinburg. So I explored quite a bit of Russia during my lifetime. And originally, my roots are from Tatarstan, from Bashkortostan, where my parents are coming from.
Yeah, wow, very good. And when did you move to Netherlands?
I moved here in the year 2000. First, I took a couple of particular courses at Leiden University, and later on that year I enrolled in LLM program, and this was one of the best choices of my life. So I completely agree with you in evaluating Kees van Raad program on international taxation, and that's definitely changed my life. I had the opportunity to get very good education and followed international tax route in my career in the following years.
What's so magical about Leiden? Why do you agree with me that it's one of the best educations in taxation you can get?
Well, in Russian we have the saying, it's a pleasure to say truth. So that's really one of the first programs, if not the first program. And at that time, it managed to attract the best professors, the best students. People were very passionate, enthusiastic about going to Leiden. There was a mix of cultures, there was a mix of knowledge. And I believe Leiden still able to keep the same track, although there is much more competition from other universities. So I don't think the quality of the education changed, but I was lucky to follow one of the first programs on LLM, and it proved to be one of the best quality-wise.
But if we move a little bit back before Leiden, I guess we all three are so-called Soviet products and studied still in Soviet times. What I guess you both studied university in Russia. So what were your hopes and dreams at that time? Did you were you dreaming of becoming where you are right now?
Well, my first university was the Plekhanov University. It was, well, absolutely Soviet time. I served 2 years in Soviet army, being a student, so it was an army break for me for 2 years. And it was, well, classical state-owned economy. So, people saw that everything was very stable. So it was very difficult to change your career if you're already on one of the tracks. So my first degree was on trade. It was trade faculty. And then when there was after collapse of the Soviet Union, I decided also to receive something else, and it was a legal degree, the Kutafin University. Then it was also a private law school. So 3 diplomas at the end and PhD degree. At one moment, I realized that I'm more not economist, but a lawyer, and I started to receive certain fun from a legal profession, being already a tax lawyer, working for the revenue. As I told, 5 years for the revenue at that time in last century. Well, it was a really challenging period because, well, business, state, they were not ready to taxation. So taxation in Soviet time was something like extra strange element of capitalism, and taxes for companies, for state-owned companies, they were planned. So system was not very flexible. And people, they paid personal income tax, a couple of other small taxes. They also did not understand what really taxes are. And it is very important to understand that at that time this tax culture almost did not exist in Soviet time, and in 90s of last century there was some sort of very quick transition period when some were very slow while sticking with state-owned approach. No idea about any tax planning, but some businesses just burned with idea of saving money. So it was very interesting time for me, very intensive, because I'm working daytime. At evenings I go to my university. After that, often I went to tax office to complete my job. So no, there was no time to think, well, whether it was good or not, but I just enjoyed, and there was a lot of energy, and there were many colleagues also doing the same stuff. And I think that for me professionally it was very good background, because, well, I see different sizes of taxation, and I participated in something like creation of Russian real tax system and understanding of this tax system. It is something that currently people cannot get when they are going to universities, for example, because they have already, well, this final product, and they don't understand the roots, the long trends. And sometimes it's possible not just from theoretical perspective, from academic perspective, but also from very practical perspective, because you should feel these trends and big stories.
Yeah, and it's exciting to be a part of actually the process where this tax system has been created, and we basically witnessed something where new countries were basically doing this almost from scratch. So it's how about you, Rustam? What were your hopes and dreams at that time, and have you fulfilled them?
Well, I studied in the 90s, and at that time there was no Soviet Union anymore. I didn't really have some strategic plan to end up being interviewed by Yanis on 30th of April 2021 as one of the experts on national tax. I was rather open to various ideas, and first I started my education in completely non-legal environment. I was supposed to be an engineer, and then when I found that it's not really exciting, I switched to legal studies. We didn't really have time. We didn't really have very strong specialization at that time. So I was rather interested in business law. At that time, in early 90s, there was excitement about these new opportunities, new challenges within legal profession. I happened to be lucky to follow courses of great practitioners like Viktor Bollinger, Vladimir Belych, Sergei Kudryvatych, Arkady Brызгалин. I got internship with Arkady Brызгалин. He is one of the leading Russian tax law practitioners. So I saw how it works in practice, how people are dealing with challenges, and this, in a way, well, made me interested in tax matters. At that time, we also had some exchange programs, and within Ural's State Law Academy, I had the chance to follow courses of Robert Koch, the German professor who was just visiting Russia, and I had the opportunity to travel to England, for example, to Germany, to see not really how legal environment works, but how the life is different. So I was kind of in between of two worlds, and I saw some, well, practical differences, how people deal with the matters, with challenges. And in a way, this paved my way to Leiden. So I was open to go there. That's basically how I moved to this Western studies and Western university.
Mm. And if I may ask, and then let's switch to now, what books are on your table? What are you reading right now?
Good question. OECD commentary. Well, to practical wise, that's OECD commentary. The cases of LOB application, principal purpose test application. That's rather technical, but that's what I'm dealing with at this very moment.
I was asking because I'm currently in a moment in my life when I understood that there is much more besides tax, and I discover a lot of other literature and including Russian classics. What about you guys? Are you completely into technical stuff only now?
Well, for me, mostly it's of course technical stuff. Unfortunately, when I read something else, mostly it is something old, and it may be Gogol's Dead Souls and Saltykov-Shchedrin, the story of a city. Surprisingly, both these books actually they're about taxation. So people don't realize this, but scenario is tax-based. So you see that I like I like satiric things, and Soldier's Wake also one of my best reading. So mostly these things, but sometimes I also go to Dostoevsky's things as well.
You just told that it's a tax-based story. What is it about? I'm actually not familiar with it.
Oh that solves. It's a very simple scenario when one guy is buying so-called death cells, because in old Russia 2 centuries ago, owners of people of pleasant, they should pay tax on them. And once a year, there is in the register there it was possible to make changes. And if somebody died in the middle of the year, still this was a taxable object. So owner of this formerly existing people, they had to pay tax on this. And one guy who's named Chichikov decided to buy these death cells, saying, well, guys, I'm buying these assets for cheap, or just grant it to me, and I will pay tax on them, on these death cells. And the idea was a business one, getting these death cells, which formerly were not death, but they were real. It was possible to go to the bank and to have a loan, saying, well, I have assets. It may be used as a pledge. So death cells were a good pledge for the banks. It's one story. And the Saltykov-Shchedrin wrote a story. Well, actually, it is a satiric version of Russian story for the centuries. And well, people did not like to pay taxes all the time, and all new governor decided to do something to collect these taxes and pay taxes. And normally they failed. Only when the governors decided not to do anything with population, people started to pay taxes by themselves. So there was a very interesting conclusion that, well, don't touch taxpayers, just create for them opportunity, to do what they want to do, and they will be happy. and they will pay taxes. So, well, these two Russian classical things, they're about taxation. And if you carefully read, you will see that, wow, it is almost on each page.
Wow. Super story. Exactly what our podcast is about. Rustam, maybe you also have some tax related story in your mind. I don't know, from your practice or literature or some movies.
Well, I trust Viktor gave an excellent example of this combination. So I don't really have something on my mind which I could so elegantly to describe. But I completely agree that we see these tax-related matters all around us.
That's right. I have a quote for you guys from one of the favorite Russian writers, Mikhail Bulgakov. He said in the White Guard story that everyone knows that tax inspectors are monsters. Maybe you have a tax story about tax inspectors in Russia nowadays. Are they behaving well several centuries later?
Well, if you look at the dynamics, definitely tax inspectors, they're becoming, let's say, more friendly, more consistent. Of course, there may be crazy stories, and sometimes stories are crazy because tax law is strange a little bit. For example, in last century, in 90s, under Russian rules, penalties may be crazy, like more than 1,000 of unpaid taxes, 1,000% of unpaid taxes. And the Russian Constitutional Court declared that it's not constitutional, but not because these penalties were extremely high. No, there was a technical argument that, well, in Russian concept of legal liability, there should be discretion when authorities are imposing this liability. And under tax law, there was no discretion at all. There were just fixed formulas. So tax authorities could not consider the level of guilty, for example. So Constitutional Court just killed all that penalties. But for tax authorities, it wasn't the case. So they just applied what they had. Now we have more electronic things. We have less contacts with tax authorities, and when you have these contacts, there is a political idea, political message that tax service, federal tax service, is actually should be servicer to taxpayers, and both taxpayers and tax authorities at the moment they're trying to understand how to live in this new environment. But of course, we have some very strange precedents, and sometimes, it may be a joke. But of course, taxpayers are not silly. They are not smiling. They are not smiling when they receive these jokes or mistakes from the tax authorities. But we are in the process. And this is the right process for both the authorities and for taxpayers as well. So I think that we will have more, let's say, civilized, real legal work, but not things like a very formal application of tax law. We lawyers, we know that it is possible to treat any provision in a stupid way. So it happens. It still happens.
And Rustam, what's your experience with dealing with the Netherlands tax authorities nowadays?
It's mainly positive, and I didn't really have a bad experience of dealing with the Russian tax authorities either. Mainly, I'm communicating not on personal or corporate matters, not like filing tax returns, but we're discussing various matters at conferences, at some scientific actions, and I'm very excited maybe about level of intelligence, level of well, friendly approach and openness of the tax authorities, and I see the changes over the years. So that's really like we are very pleased to speak with you, for example, and enjoying this conversation. More or less the same conversation take place with at least servants of the central office of the Russian tax authorities. So they're very well educated, they're very well aware of what is going on, they're open to discuss various matters. And referring to the beginning of your question, as a taxpayer here in the Netherlands, I see the fairness from the side of Dutch tax authorities, and it is very important to understand that you are treated fairly. So when you have this confidence in the system, when you feel that you are treated properly, there is no much, so at least you understand what you're paying for. Basically, you're paying to support the system. And in a way, coming back to your question, what are the signs of tax culture within us? Quite often, mistreatment of taxpayers can result in pretty disastrous consequences for the state. The Netherlands have been created because of, let's say, tax oppression of the Spanish rulers of the country. They were asking for too much taxes, and middle class of the days, the traders, they just uprised. One of the reasons was the religious oppression. That maybe more important was economic oppression. We recall that Boston Tea Party was also a tax-related event, and one of the milestones of independence of the United States. So in a way, this is a strategic decision to treat your taxpayers fairly and make them happy as much as you can. Otherwise, they might rebel. Otherwise, they might do things which the state would not like.
Yeah, what good examples you are bringing. Taxes are everywhere. It's in literature, it's in creation of countries, it's in revolution. So basically everywhere. And that brings me to one more quite well-known story. And I will cut if you don't like this question, but I want to ask about this your take on this Russian story of Bill Broder's book about a tax lawyer in Russia who was basically alleged and put into prison and died there. What's your take of this story? How much is this discussed in Russian among Russian tax lawyers? Is this made up, or everything that is in this Red Notice book pretty much true? What would be your comments about this?
Well, have not seen the book. I may guess what is inside. It may be some predictable statements, but I'm asked about this story. It's a big story, and I think there's a definitely final element when the lawyer died in the prison. Mostly, it is international audience asking about this. In Russia, it is something like well, for me, it's if you ask me, if somebody is asking me about pyramids, Egyptian pyramids, for example, so it is not on the top. There was a period when people concentrated on this. Why? Just because there were rules when the police can arrest people for some potential wrongdoing in respect of taxation and other things like corporate frauds and many different things. It's not tax related, and people were in prison. Definitely, they want the pressure to accept something. Probably, law changed as a result of different complaints. That's it. For me, this story is example of a case when people do not often want to go deep into stories. The same story happened with the Khodorkovsky case, because people have some messages from mass media, but when you start to talk with them saying, well, let's look into this. First of it, these both stories, they are complex. There are different episodes into them. And if you looked at these episodes, people start to raise questions saying, well, we just have not heard about these. I normally say, well, guys, it's not a secret. If you need information, now you will find all this information. And in both cases, you will end up with very simple and aggressive tax techniques, which are not acceptable in civilized world. And even non-tax specialists say that, well, there were some games, some strange games, and tax specialists nowadays, if you don't say that it is like Magnitsky case, Browder case, or Khodorkovsky case, and just explain some elements, people say, well, it is not acceptable. And you say, well, it's Magnitsky, Khodorkovsky. Some say, well, no, it's politically motivated. so, we are professionals. We should look very deep in the stories. And, what happened with Magnitsky, I don't know. The police say, well, please look at this report, medical report. There was a number of disease, so it may be a coincidence. I don't see any reason for the state to kill tax lawyer in prison. I think that politically, from PR perspective, of course, it's better to have a court, to have a court decision. So this death is against the state interest. But generally, these stories were really very juicy. Unfortunately, the audience is not interested to go deep, especially nowadays when we have new, let's say, episode. We have the BEPS, we have something else. Maybe somebody will look at these stories pure from tax perspective, to the extent it is possible to get this publicly available information. On UCOS, a lot is published, so we know that different courts, including European courts, they analyze this. Browder Magnitsky case, it's different. But still, if you look at the information in media, it may be a very good movie, very good blockbuster, Hollywood type. And I will recommend it for my tax students to see it as the firm by Grisham. So juicy stories, right? But to make conclusions, everyone needs to have more information. Otherwise, it will be just separate statements, which may be very far from reality.
Rustam, do you have something to add?
I also do not really have a lot of details on this case, and to be honest, I didn't read this Browder's book. What I heard about this Magnitsky case, of course, this is a tragedy, so it's clear that person died, and this should not be happening. I agree with Viktor that Russian state was not really interested to have a tax lawyer died in prison. The question is who is guilty. That's another question. And what I see, as also Viktor mentioned, sometimes we have like objective coverage. So facts, analysis. With Magnitsky, it looked like a PR campaign. And it might have been a PR campaign, in a way that it was very pushy. Like these are the guilty guys. They should be punished, and black and white picture. I'm well, as you mentioned, we are Soviet products, so I lived certain number of years, and normally there are not that many black and white pictures. I would be surprised if one of the side of the argument presents completely objective and unbiased picture of what was happening. And I would be happy if there would be no such cases anymore. And so that's my only conclusion. What exactly needs to be done, and who exactly was guilty, what part of this was on Browder's side, because if people go into defending their interest or in encountering in serious battle, well, they should also think of consequences not only for themselves but also people from their team. So to me, there is a lot of unclear and uncertain things in this story, which are obviously sad. But to say that one of the particular party is completely guilty for everything, I don't really have facts allowing to make such conclusions.
Yeah, I agree with you. Many questions are still open, but what was striking for me after reading the book was not what really happened in the prison, but how a tax lawyer who basically was a whistleblower about alleged tax fraud at the tax authorities ended up in prison at all. So that was like my sort of main sort of takeaway from this story. I don't know if you have heard any comments to that side.
Well, there are different episodes. So, well, we saw often in the past that when somebody is called to police and some investigations are open, and people say, well, sorry, you see, I know something about something else, or I'm a deputy. Well, you see, I'm building my political career. And after that, you may see stories that somebody is building a political career, and well, state press him for tax wrongdoing or something else. The same story with Magnitsky, when yes, he reported something, but he was called, as I understand, tax investigation was open in respect of different things. So, well, we need details. And after that, something may be clear. Of course, people try to protect themselves. But in our life, we are professionals. We know how to do due diligence. So for me, it's very funny when my colleagues well, who know what is due diligence. They are ready to believe just in one senses in the internet, for example, because I think because they are already politically motivated. And when we have this, we have people who already have views and they're not ready, well, to diligently looked at the stories. Well, it's a problem. It's not a problem of Magnitsky. It's a problem of people who don't like details, who don't like professional views. They already have these views. It is very bad, I think. It's because, well, people maybe against something without knowing anything. I just don't like you. It's the real message. And we see this. We see this right now in political life in different combinations. Different states, they are looked at each other, and then there are many supporters to say that, well, I don't trust you. I don't trust you because you're from the state, for example. That's it. That's it.
Okay, let's switch the topic.
May I add one particular comment? What I see from mainstream media, sometimes it's campaign to demonize particular state, particular authority, particular figure. And from the story, like, the tax authorities, as sometimes it was presented, the tax authorities were involved in some stealing money laundering. Some person came and say, hey, what you are doing, and they arranged that he died in prison. This is not really how Russian tax system works, and there is internal control system. There is I'm not advocating, so I'm not playing the defense team of the wrongdoers. No, if people did something wrong, they definitely should be punished, and I'm pretty much sure that serious investigation should have taken place. But I agree with Viktor. Sometimes it's really one-sided, and if we just put this into one. Also these small bits and pieces into one single picture, it just doesn't fit. So the tax system cannot work as a gang, pursuing people who are trying to identify some mismanagement or mistreatment. If there would be results of an objective investigation, I would be very much interested to read more in details about this, and I would be very much interested to receive from local media also more objective, not this very oversimplified picture like bad guys against the good guys, and there is a dead body of tax lawyer. So the life is the dead body of tax lawyer is always a bad thing, but what was really standing behind this, the oversimplified stories do not really explain that well.
All right.
Yes, I had a couple of stories, unit stories. I have personal stories. One, I work for the revenue. There were two very interesting stories for me. One related to an individual who disputes something with the state, and I represented the state because, well, there was the tax authorities had to deal with some civil law cases. There was a inheritance, and another story was a pure business thing when tax authorities, my tax inspectorate, imposed big penalties, like this 1,000% penalty. And in both cases, well, people came to the authorities, to my chief of the tax inspectorate, saying, well, in one case, well, Viktor is considered to do something against state interests. And Viktor was at meeting with one of the guys. There was a name of the guys outside Moscow in the countryside. And Viktor was considering how to avoid, how to breach the state's rights. Surprise was that there was name, place, and date. That time, I didn't work for tax authorities yet. I even did not want that time to work to the authorities. And that time I even did not know about the tax authorities at all. So, but people were absolutely crazy to write about this to my chief. So it was personal attack at me, and it was absolutely a scheme. And it is one story. Then next story about this high penalty. Again, people just told to my chief that, well, Viktor and the whole inspectorate, we help the competitors, well, to size this business. And well, I and my chief, we were very, very surprised. Well, because we did just our job. It was the formula. Well, wrongdoing, penalty, that's it. No choice at all. Again, so people publicly wrote different letters and different authorities. Well, that there is a gang in tax system which helping competitors to do something. So I was a victim. Of this approach, and people were not ready to give any evidence. So now when I see and hear about these allegations, well, I think, well, guys, stop. Where's evidence? Normally, no evidence at all, or just part of the evidence.
Yeah, people tend to demonize tax authorities. That's I think everywhere, also in our country. I can suggest you guys one new book. I just bumped into. It was launched very recently, a couple of months ago. It's called Rebellion, Rascals and Revenue by Michael Keane and Joel Slemrod. And this book seems to be very interesting about historical events of around different taxes. And one of the stories there is about India around 300 years ago, in beginning of 19th century, where there were taxes for wearing different sort of strange taxes. One was for wearing jewelry, the other was for growing mustache, and there was one even for covering. For women covering their breasts when going outside the house. So that was a privilege of rich women to cover their breasts if you go outside. Do you remember any strange taxes in old Russia from your country's history, or what do you think about today's taxes? Will any of our grandchildren think that, well, these were crazy times and these were crazy taxes applied?
Well, in Russia, the historical evidences are that there were taxation of so-called smoke. So household with one pipe with the smoke was taxed as one of the taxable units. And for that reason, some people made saunas without this external pipe for the smoke. So-called black sauna. So there were taxes on beards of individuals. So the Peter the Great, he wanted to made European trends, European fashion, and people should shave their beard. So, Yanis, you would be taxed in Russia under that rules. Well, these are anecdotal examples. Maybe Viktor will add more. Nowadays, nowadays we all believe that we're much more civilized, that we're much more advanced, but maybe some of the taxes will be just as ridiculous as the smoke tax or beer tax. from perspective of what I find not really logical, but I see it also everywhere in Europe, so-called tourist tax. So when you go for vacation somewhere and you are additionally charged, it doesn't really fit in my mind for competition for tourists. So if you go there, you pay some additional charges. I've seen this in Italy, I've seen this in a couple of other places, and nowadays in Russia, regions, they're also, we are going to tax people who are going to for summer vacation to our region. So that's additional revenue. That's crazy what you're doing. You're discouraging people to go to you. But this is not really well analyzed and well calculated. So maybe it makes business sense to tax people this way. But if you ask me to find some candidates for the jokes for the future generations, I would think tourist tax might be one of them.
Yeah. And another tax we have in Latvia, and I see them in quite many jurisdictions, is a tax on use of different hardware for copying copyrighted materials, whereas actually nowadays everyone is streaming, so that nobody is making copies of copyrighted materials anymore, and still it's taxed. So it's also quite, I think our children will laugh at this. Viktor, do you have some examples as well?
Well, exotic taxation, very funny thing. Usual part of any tax program. I think that Russians and Soviets, they normally remember so-called no child tax. Idea was that males, it worked just for males. So after certain age, for example, after 20 years, if you don't have children, you have to pay extra tax. So normally it's presented like exotic, strange, and non-constitutional tax. But I think that more or less it is absolutely the same thing when you have some relief or deductions for child. So idea is absolutely the same. So it's a good example that legal techniques can present the same things in different ways. So for some reasons, if you have a child, you have this relief or deduction. If you don't have, you don't have. So technically, it's the same what Soviets did in the past for men who didn't have children.
And I don't know. We are already running out of our agreed 1 hour. Viktor, do you have still some half an hour to continue?
Not sure, because I have webinar in let's say in 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Then maybe if I could continue with Roustam for some maybe.
Yeah, I'm available. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and if my webinar will be short, I will be back.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks,
great.
Viktor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Roustam, you are living in I would say in both parts of the world, in Russia and Netherlands. Do you see some nowadays some significant differences, cultural differences and differences in approach of Russian businesses and European ones? Like I don't know that Russian tax structuring is more aggressive than the other ones, or it's now pretty much equalized. What's your take on the cultural differences?
Well, I see the approximation of tax planning mentality, of tax planning culture, not meaning that Europeans become more Wild West style, which we saw in Russia in 90s, in early zeros. No, it's more like Russian administration, Russian tax control, balance of incentives and penalties bring businesses to more or less the same footing as European taxpayers experience. So the approximation, meaning that Russian taxpayers, they act more like Europeans do, which are under very strict control, which are under very efficient tax enforcement measures. So we see as the Russian tax authorities become more skillful, more knowledgeable, more efficient in what they're doing, the Russian taxpayers become correspondingly less aggressive, more compliant. And again, coming back to fairness treatment, when the taxpayers feel that it is just more efficient to be compliant, this is a very strong argument. This is a very strong argument. This is a game changer in their mentality. So I see now much more similarities in behavior of taxpayers compared to what I have seen like 15 or 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I fully agree. I see the same changes happening here in the Baltics, and and speaking of the Baltics, do you have any impressions of the Baltic tax systems nowadays? What would be your couple of sentences if someone asks what do you think of Baltic tax systems?
Well, I'm not really practicing a lot in respect of being very well aware of the developments. It's just a random, maybe, touch of what is going on. I like the flexibility of Baltic tax systems. I don't know if you're going to cut this out or not, but I recall our discussion in the Riga Cafe on introduction of particular regime, and it appeared like in 1.5 years after that conversation. So it wouldn't work like this in Russia. So you wouldn't have a conversation with somebody from tax consultancy and see this being implemented in law on such a short notice. And this flexibility allows tax systems in Baltic states being rather competitive, or being rather quick. I also see the reasonable approach to tax enforcement being also an advantage. And I know quite a lot of Russian businesses who opted to establish themselves in Baltic states simply because, not because of tax advantages, but more like because of tax certainty, more like because of ability to discuss certain matters with authorities. So I believe the Baltic Baltic tax systems and Baltic administration of tax systems may give a lot of good lessons to both West European and Russian authorities to learn and borrow this experience.
And I agree to what you said about is very significant improvements lately in Russia. And I've heard also from the previous guests of our Tax Stories podcast that Russia has been acknowledged as becoming quite advanced in their approaches to the tax policies and to using the technology. Can you confirm that and highlight some of these advancements?
Yes, this is true, and in a way, this is a paradox because in 90s, the Russian tax authorities, they were not that well equipped with instruments, with information. So they had to work hard to improve this. And after some time, they made a really huge advancement, and they become more advanced than many West European tax authorities. For example, quite a number of years ago, there was a created system of matching electronic invoices, because VAT was one of the areas where there was a lot of misbehavior, some fraudulent activities. So the Russian tax authorities had to invent the way of administrating VAT efficiently, and they created basically obligation to match all the invoices electronically. And this system proved to be very efficient, and many West European countries, they are just thinking of creating something like this. They are struggling to basically to catch up with Russia. This is one of the examples where this technological solution was ahead of European developments.
Yeah. And it's very strange. Yesterday, I was speaking in a webinar for U.S. Businesses and how to go to the U.S. And one of the U.S. tax lawyers said that still, if you want to, in some places, if you want to get a tax number there, you have to fax an application and or just wait for postal exchange. So these are sometimes seem to be so different worlds. But about Russia, I read in one of the books that in order to resolve tax dispute, to go through all three court instances, it takes only about 1 year, and about half of the tax cases are won by the taxpayers. How did you achieve this amazing result? I spoke to Professor Maisto in the previous episode, and he said in Italy it takes approximately 10 years to resolve a tax dispute there. So what's the magical formula in Russia?
Well, to be honest, I'm not very much into this dispute resolution. This sounds very flattering, but in practical cases, I would give estimation of just from arising of the dispute and moment of getting tax adjustment to resolving this through all the three court system, it might take maybe a couple of years. So 1 year it might be happening if everything goes smoothly and quickly, but practical wise, it might be up to 1 year for administrative appeal, then another 1.5 years of court disputes. And normally when we see the decisions of the courts, they relate to tax periods of, let's say, 5-6 years back, meaning that there was a tax control in Russia. It is 3 years after the taxable period, so let's say 3.5 years. And so this is just estimation that if we see in 2001 cases on tax adjustments in 2014, 2015, it means that the tax audit took place somewhere in 17-18. Then there was an appeal. So this is just empirical estimation that a tax case is being resolved within, let's say, 2.5 years. Still much less than 10 years in Europe. What was the reason of this? People used to litigate quite a lot in the past, because it was really like a gambling. So there, on the one hand, the chances to win the case were much higher. You also mentioned 50% cases are being won. I heard different statistics. I heard like maybe up to 20%. And in terms of amounts at stake, it's even less. So tax authorities, they are very efficient in terms of selecting cases for litigation. I mean, not really. They do not select cases for litigation, but they can voluntarily admit some appeals of taxpayers which are obviously have the grounds. So if there's a straightforward case and there was a mistake of tax authorities, in many cases it will be resolved in favor of taxpayer by the higher tax authority at the appellate instance.
Yeah. And is there a pre-litigation stage where also you can avoid the litigation?
Yes, yes. I believe this is one of the reasons why there is a relatively small percentage of cases being resolved in favor of taxpayers, because quite a lot of them, I do not really have statistics. This is just my my thoughts explaining these figures. But I believe some of the cases where taxpayer is right, basically, are being resolved in administrative appeal procedure, which is obligatory. So it's just not possible just go to court. Prior to this, taxpayer need to go through this administrative appeal, and I believe quite a number of cases where taxpayer is right is being resolved in his or her favor at this stage.
Mm-hmm. And I remember several years ago there was a big, there were big news in media that Russia is introducing this CFC legislation and asking the companies and international structures to come forward to Russia to disclose their structures and basically make everything right. Was this effective move, and how are the structures now? Is it made sort of? I understand there has been certain tendency to use less these offshore structures.
Well, there are different conclusions in respect of efficiency. Some people say that it was extremely efficient, so it just killed all these offshore structures. Some say that there was a minor effect. I can comment only from my personal perspective. I believe this was rather efficient and well-organized series of measures. It was not just introduction of CFC legislation. Russia also introduced so-called tax amnesty. Just a second. Alongside with CFC legislation, Russia introduced some bonuses for taxpayer who decided to liquidate foreign companies. It was free of tax repatriation of funds. There were three ways of this tax amnesty, and it created basically very attractive opportunities for people who were ready to get rid of foreign companies, foreign structures. So zero tax, no questions asked about these foreign assets. And in some cases, these foreign assets, they might be even left out or outside of Russia. This was a wonderful offer. Imagine something like this happening in Europe. Like, yeah, you were not paying taxes for years, and you may continue by just declaring these assets without paying any extra taxes. It was a very attractive offer for many, and I see quite a number of Russian structures. They are reducing the foreign element, not just because of CFC, not just because of this tax amnesty, but also because of a change of Russian double tax treaties. Nowadays, well, there is no much sense to have a holding company in Cyprus or in Luxembourg unless you need this for business purposes. because you will still be paying 15% tax irrespective of what you do, and 15% it's also domestic Russian rate. So what you are winning. In my opinion, series of these measures was efficient. Some people say it might be even more efficient. Well, I'm not in position to argue with this. But answering your question, yes, I definitely seen an impact of these measures on Russian international tax structuring.
But at the same time, I heard also rumors that those who were, at least some of them, who were coming forward under these amnesty procedures, they were also having some criminal liability cases. Could that be true?
Well, I heard of one particular case where this well, had been reported to materialize. So that there was one person who submitted this tax tax amnesty declaration, and on basis of this, he was allegedly prosecuted. I haven't seen, so I do not really have much details, but for sure this was not the massive. There was one case reported. I do not know how it was resolved, whether the person really was prosecuted or it was just slowed down. So well, when we speak about some strange things happening, we also need to take into account that there is no one like machine which takes decisions, which issues some orders. There are particular tax officers with their own understanding of facts, with their own understanding of legislation, and some people within tax authorities might also cross the line between what is allowed and what is not allowed. So they also make mistakes.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that they're perfect, just robots who do what they should do. But I have not seen the massive persecution of owners of the business who disclose their foreign assets.
Okay. And coming back to what you said about holding companies, you are living in the middle of holding company jurisdiction in Netherlands. Do you see any changes after the European Court of Justice to 2019 Danish cases, where more and more we see across Europe that the tax authorities are challenging the fact of having the holding company and looking through it for ultimate beneficial owners and so on. What do you see from Netherlands? What is happening to holding companies?
Well, I'm not practicing on Dutch tax matters, so I wouldn't really give a comment on like Dutch international tax developments in picture. From Russian perspective, I haven't seen really many cases when the Dutch tax authority challenged the Russian holding structures on basis of these Danish cases. Maybe it's just not the time, maybe it's just not that much relevant. These cross-border structures, they experience more scrutiny from the Russian perspective. That's true, and some of them, they either simplify their structure, they back it up with substance, or they just go for liquidation because they simply do not need the holding company, which they cannot substantiate business-wise or substance-wise. This is my observation.
Yeah. And then switching topic, I actually, this is, I think, one of the last topics I have in my agenda for today is this international tax course that you are organizing together with Viktor. I see quite impressive agenda that approximately 20 different lecturers by having different more than 20 different topics. Tell me about the course. What is it about? For whom? Where to find information? How to apply, and so on?
Mm. Well, thank you. That's really exciting topic to discuss. This was very successful initiative suggested and thought through by Viktor. So he was basically the the strategist behind this idea. And first, we launched initiative of a series of courses free of charge. Just there was there was intention just to gather people with certain knowledge of international tax and help them to share this knowledge with students, with practitioners who just wanted to learn more. So this is what like more social initiative or knowledge sharing initiative. It proved to be very successful. We had more than 1,000 registrations. And we were very surprised because there was no marketing of this initiative, just an announcement on Facebook, which in a way became viral, and we got this quite a number of registrations. And during this series of lectures, we were receiving requests like, guys, could you do it in a more structured way? Could you do it in more in depth? And we followed this request. We created already fee-based course, which allowed us to hire administrative staff to support this, to launch some promotional campaign, but it's still not very expensive, so that's very affordable. We invited lecturers who were happy to join this initiative because it's still more like knowledge sharing, more than commercial enterprise. And they got also experience, because what is special about this course, it's not really academic. This everyone who is speaking there is a practicing lawyer and now with a certain specialization, with certain name within international taxation. It was rather successful, so we are getting good responses, good comments. It's very easy to enroll, so just fill in the form and pay moderate fees. And basically, within this automatic system of online education courses, applicant receives the link and can follow the ongoing course and get access to recorded lectures which took place in the past. And at present, we are considering option to relaunch these already in the English language, because the first one was in Russian. And the first lecture of the English language course is going to take place on 26th of May. So if I may announce this, and it will be started by Professor Kees van Raat, who we already mentioned, who was creating this Leiden alumni, Leiden international taxation program, and lecturers will be mainly Leiden alumni, although this is open for practitioners from other LLM programs and from other countries and areas of expertise.
Fantastic. I can imagine it will be very popular also in Baltics, because we're really lacking very good quality courses here on taxation. And where to find this?
We will be announcing this on Facebook. I have a group, Radio BEPS, which is easily findable on Facebook. Definitely there will be announcement there. This is mainly Russian language group, but it will be published in English. So the very quick response to the question where to find information, just type Radio BEPS on Facebook. You will see the group and you will find a couple of links there.
Yeah. I can confirm I'm a big fan of your Radio BEPS group. A lot of very useful tax information is there. So how did you create this group?
Well, there was no, again, there was no particular idea of There was no strategic plan to create what is nowadays one of the best known, at least within the Russian Facebook area, international taxation group. I just wanted to share some interesting notes and publications on international taxation with comments. So I created this group about 5 years ago, and people just liked it. So there was no a strategic marketing promotion. So it's all organic. It's all just people who liked the idea, who was invited by other members of the group.
Yeah.
This one of the initiatives which grows simply because people like it and they're interested in the content.
Great initiative. I really support it. And finally, I've as you probably know, I conclude every podcast with a sort of personal question on what is your version of meaning of life of you as a tax lawyer.
Meaning of life as a tax lawyer. Well, that's completely non-tax. I wouldn't be very exotic, maybe, or very original in defining this. Just live your life in harmony with your internal interests, with the family, with enjoying what you see around. So life is definitely not restricted by taxes. In my definition of life, it was not mentioned that often.
Yes, but taxes are everywhere.
That's true. That's true. Anything what we see around, one way or another, would be related to taxes. Simply because this is just a society, we're not on our own, and taxes are instruments of redistribution and supporting each other within the society. So basically, this is just one of the fundamental parts of the community of co-living. That's maybe too philosophical, but this is basically what tax is about.
Oh, that was exactly what I wanted to hear. With those great words, I really thank you, Roustam, for your time and on the way we lost Viktor, but also I'm very thankful for his contribution. So I hope you liked the discussion, and I really personally enjoyed it. Let's see if the listeners will send some positive feedback as well.
Well, thank you very much, Yanis. I'm very pleased to be invited, and I also enjoyed conversation, and some things never came across my mind, actually. So these deep thoughts about tax life and our role in this process. Thank you for inviting to this podcast.
Thanks, Roustam. Appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.